We've talked about square roots of perfect squares, so today we're going to talk about square roots of fractions. In order to find the square root of fractions, it's really nice if we go back and review how we actually multiply fractions before we start. So let's think about a situation where we would need to multiply a fraction by a fraction. So let's imagine that you go home from school today and you're starving, but you know there is 1/4 of a pizza left over from dinner last night. But just as you're about to eat that 1/4 of the pizza, your little brother comes home, and because you're nice, you decide to share that 1/4 of the pizza with your brother. So you're going to take half of that 1/4. So let's write that out as a statement. You're going to get 1/2 of the 1/4 of the pizza. Now mathematicians like the word of because that's usually a reference to multiplication. So we can actually write this as a multiplication problem. 1/2 times 1/4. And if you recall how we multiply fractions, it's a pretty easy process. We're going to multiply the numerator times the numerator. And then we're going to multiply the denominator times the denominator. So it's straight across multiplication. So in this case, we'll have 1 times 1 equals 1, and 2 times 4 equals 8. So you are going to get 1/8. Well, what does that mean? That means you are actually getting 1/8 of the entire pizza. So 1/2 of 1/4 is 1/8 of the entire picture. So make sure you stop and write this down before you proceed to the next part of the video. We'll do one more practice problem with multiplying fractions, and let's look at 2/3 times 5/6. So we're going to do 2 times 5, which is 10, and 3 times 6, which is 18. That gives us 10/18. But remember, mathematicians, we always simplify our fractions, so 10/18, I'm sorry, would simplify to 5/9 because of a common factor of 2. So let's take that knowledge that we already have and apply it to finding the square roots of fractions. Let's start with 4/9. We want the square root of 4/9, and that means what fraction multiplied by itself is going to give us that 4/9. This is pretty easy for us to do if we break it into parts. Let's look at the numerator first, the top number. What number times itself gives you 4? If you said 2, you've got the numerator, or the numerator, I'm sorry. Now let's think about what number times itself gives you 9. And if you thought about 3 times 3 is 9, you've got it. So you know that we're dealing with 2/3 times 2/3, and that's a fraction multiplied by itself. It gives us 4/9. 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9. So we know that the square root of 4/9 is going to be 2/3. So before you proceed, write this down in your notes, and then we're going to do 4 more practice problems before we wind up the lesson. All right, let's take a look at the square root of 121 over 144. Start with the numerator first. What number times itself is giving you 121? If you thought 11, then you're on the right track. You've got this. So the numerator of our answer is going to be 11. What number times itself gives you 144? If you say 12, you've got the square root of 121 over 144, and that is 11/12. So stop and check your work. 11 times 11 is 121. 12 times 12 is 144. You're ready to move on now. Let's look at the square root of 4 over 25. What number times itself gives you 4? That would be 2. And what number times itself gives you 25? And if you said 2/5, then you've got this. Very good. Stop for just a moment. You try to find the square root of 64 over 81 and the square root of 49 over 100, and then start the video when you have your responses. All right, if you thought about 8 times 8 equaling 64 and 9 times 9 equaling 81, then you have the square root of 8/9. And on the final problem, if you thought about 7 times 7 equals 49 and 10 times 10 equals 100, then you have the square root of 49 over 100, which is 7/10. Be sure you have a thorough set of notes, and be sure to check in with me if you have any questions about what you've seen on today's video.